The election landscape continues to change, with new technology being introduced often and social media playing a role in influencing the electorate. To take a look at the pros and cons of digital voting technology and social media, I'm now joined by Jan Vermeulen, editor at My Broadband. Jan, appreciate your time. Let's talk about some of these pros and cons of digital voting technology and social media.
Yeah, sure thing. So yeah, digital voting technology, I guess it depends on what you're talking about. Are you talking about electronic voting, or are you talking about just, digital systems to help on voting day? So for example, here in South Africa, the IEC tried again to use their voter registration terminals on the day, and they fell over and they had to fall back to a paper backup. But elsewhere in the world, there's all kinds of attempts to use electronic voting. Some have been successful, others have not, and it really depends country to country whether such systems work or not. Honestly, in a place like South Africa, I think electronic voting is a waste of resources. Trying to go to online voting is just exchanging one simple set of problems for a complex set of problems. I think that there's simpler things that can be done to address the queues on voting day and fix the problems that we have, rather than trying to introduce something like electronic or online voting and then having to deal with all of the problems that are part and parcel of that, including cybersecurity.
So let's talk about how digital technologies like biometric voter registration, for instance, have impacted the credibility and integrity of elections, particularly on the African continent.
Yeah, so that's something where technology can help, provided it's working, but you need to have some kind of fallback. So the thing that we struggle with on the African continent, from down here in South Africa all the way to Egypt, is connectivity. And so it's great to have a biometric authentication system to make sure that there's no double voting, to ensure the integrity of the election, etc. But those systems are only as good as the connectivity behind it, or unless you design them to not require connectivity. But that comes with its own set of challenges. And so, yeah, the technology like this can go some way to ensure that election is fair, to ensure that people are not cheating the system, but they also need to operate in the real world. And so, connectivity here in South Africa, we're blessed with relatively good connectivity, but the system itself often just cannot handle the influx of queries on voting day. And so building systems like these are hard. And so that's why I say that while there's an opportunity to make elections more credible with digital technologies, one must weigh the cost. I know this sounds weird coming from a tech guy, but one must weigh the cost of the technology against the cost of just improving good old-fashioned paper-based systems, making sure that they're highly auditable, and ensuring some kind of independent oversight over an election, which is going to cost less, that or building an extremely robust digital system. And so that's not an easy question to answer. That's something that has to be answered country by country.
Well, here's another tough question for you, Jan, and that speaks to... So we've talked about digital technology used in collation of people's votes. Now, there's also technology that's used to put up the results, as we saw at the Rock a couple of days ago. And the challenges there were that the system collapsed. Now, there have been accusations on the integrity of the system, and some have gone as far as alleging that it was a process of manipulation of the results. What is your take on what transpired at the Rock a few days ago when the system bombed for a few hours?
Yeah, it's difficult to know exactly what went wrong, but considering that the IEC's voter registration terminals, at least when I went from the reports in the morning, they weren't working. And when I went in to vote, nobody was scanning my ID. My name was crossed off of the paper list. And so it certainly seemed like the IEC system was not the voter registration system wasn't working. And so the visualization system, for the results visualization system, I can absolutely see that getting hammered, in the morning when everybody is coming online to see what results came in while they were asleep, and that caused the system to collapse. But this is why you need a paper backup. So even if you have a form of electronic voting or online voting, there needs to be an auditable paper trail so that if someone says, I demand a recount, you don't go, we don't know how to do a recount because we don't have paper ballots. Now we can say, fine, we have the paper ballots, we'll recount them. We'll recount them as many times as you like, and we'll get to the same result. And so that's why having a good old-fashioned paper backup is extremely important. So that guards against not just internal threats, because obviously there's a huge amount of vested interest from the rival political parties to try and game the system, except, of course, if they get caught, then there will be severe repercussions. But there's also incentive sometimes from outside forces to meddle in democratic elections. And so your systems have to be robust to both.
Jan Vermeulen, editor at My Broadband, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for speaking to us this afternoon and suggesting that it is important to have both the electronic and a manual backup.